Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you may be listening from. This is Michael Cross here with another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions, where we try to analyze issues a little bit deeper. Well, actually a lot deeper than you're going to get in the mainstream media with all their bias and sound bites and psychological manipulation that they employ against the viewing public. Now, tonight, well, before I get into tonight's issue, I would just encourage people to come visit my website at michaelcross.net. And if you want to see some of the former interviews I've done, you could check my YouTube station out at Michael Cross. It'll be the Michael Cross that will list as part of the description my Freedom from Conscience book series. But anyway, beyond that plug, let's just go into tonight's topic. You know, I've been watching this thing with the whole Republican elections and the Democrat ones for that matter, because I'm going to fuse these together. And you know what I've really kind of, been perplexed by one issue that's been left out of this entire equation, and that is social class. That's right, social class. And it's not in the direction that usually you expect it. Because you got someone like Donald Trump, okay? He's a billionaire. He's made most of his fortune on his own. And the thing is that he is the one who seems to be connecting to various social groups that the establishment does not want involved in politics. If you think for 1 minute that the leaders of the Republican or the Democratic parties really want 100% voter turnout, you are sadly mistaken. Okay? I had a professor in college in a grad level political science course. I think it was a political psychology course. And he used this analogy. You've got two, let's just say soccer teams playing. Now, the soccer players are the ones that are chosen from the very, whoever owns the soccer team, usually a corporation nowadays, if it's a big league, type of soccer team. Same is true of other sports as well. And they've been selected based on how they qualify according to what that particular company / team wants. And they're out there playing against another team that's probably kind of from the same sort of backgrounds. The players probably have gone through the same experiences, the same training, and most of them have kind of the same values, really. And then their coaches and the people that own the team have the same experiences as well as the other team. They have actually the two teams, while everyone's up there in the stadium going, rah rah for their team, the two teams are probably almost indistinguishable from one another. There is no good guy, bad guy. There is no real difference between them as a body. Now, here's the interesting thing that this professor brought up. Let's say one of the teams is not playing so well, and so people from the stadium start jumping in and joining in kicking the ball around and trying to make a goal for that team. And then people from the other side see that that's unfair, so they start jumping in and playing. Now, I see to this professor, it was not good when that would happen. There you'd have anarchy, chaos, whatever. I can't remember exactly how he described it, when it comes to technical terms. However, that is how he presented the idea that it's better to have a society in which the media and the dominant political parties limit involvement and are able to filter out the people who might rock the boat. And that usually means that you want people from a top-down perspective that are going to show the same values, interest, likes and dislikes as in the upper elite of the party. And so even you may not be the richest person who gets involved in party politics, but you're not going to go very far if you're not you don't have the same characteristics, at least the same values as the people higher up. Because when people get, as Franklin Roosevelt said, he said this about presidents, but it's true for pretty much all elective office. Elected officials are not elected, they're selected. Okay? You filter out the people that you want to represent your party, and then you throw them in there into the political game. And so right now what's happening that's really disrupted both the Democrat and Republican parties, but it's more visible within the Republican Party, is that you've got the internet. You've got the ability for people to go in and start exploring issues for themselves, to start connecting to social groups, whether that be a Facebook page, whether it be a blog that's popular, whether it be any number of a certain media, alternative or independent media. You start connecting, and then you start getting the news that's directed towards you and your interest. And that doesn't, that's the interesting thing. This could mean that a truck driver who listens to independent radio while he or she is traveling around is going to maybe be connected to people who have totally different occupational interests, to totally different education levels, but they agree with each other on certain issues. And so in that sense, people are able to connect, and then that means people are being brought in, not through the political parties, but through activism, through the desire to get in there and do something. And there is where someone like Bernie Sanders, to a certain degree, but almost certainly Donald Trump, has changed things. Because what he has done is he's created a figurehead. Okay, he is someone who people feel like they can relate to. And they don't feel they can relate to the typical politicians we've been getting after Ronald Reagan's presidency. And maybe Ronald Reagan was more image, who knows? But it still made people feel that they were connected, even if they're a welder in some factory, or whether they were a doctor, or whether they were working with technical things. They all felt like Ronald Reagan connected to them, and so their interests were being represented. Now, after, I would say, the early 90s, when you did get people like George Bush and later Clinton, and then even the next Bush, and most certainly with Obama, you got people that claim to be representing the average man and woman, but in reality, they are being represented by special interest groups, to the point that Jimmy Carter recently in an interview said, America is no longer a democracy, it's an oligarchy. He said he would not be able to get elected nowadays. It would be impossible. An oligarchy is when you have major corporations that have all the control. Okay? It doesn't mean you have a monopoly. I mean, heck, our mainstream media, there's 6 major corporations that control 90% or more of what you see on the news, even what you see in movies, and even in print media, like novels and stuff. You've got 6 corporations you can choose from. That's an oligopoly, because all of those corporations essentially, the people that are in them, many times these CEOs are interchangeable. They have the same values for the most part. And so therefore, you do get a situation in which people are able, the little guy is not being represented, whether that issue has to do with something like, let's just focus on something, globalization. I have nothing against globalization. I like the idea that I can get on here and I may be having someone, I can tell through when I look at people watching my videos or visiting my website. that I'm getting people from. I might have someone from Dubai. I might have someone from China. I might have someone from Russia. Someone, usually a bunch of people from the United States and England and Canada. But I have that ability through globalization in respect to technology and communications to connect to people all over the world. However, there is another aspect of globalization, and that's financial globalization. And that's when large companies will say, hey, you know what? It is to everyone's advantage that, you take your companies away from places that cost too much to build things. They don't mention why it costs too much. Why it costs more to have an air conditioner, a car, any kind of appliance put together in another country than it does, for instance, in, let's say, America or England or Germany or whatever. And the reason is because, 150 years ago, the people that worked in the factories didn't have much protection. Then over years and years and years of unionization, various political, social changes in society, you wound up getting factories required to have, control pollution, biggie there, not to pollute the environment. Factories had to modernize to do that, but it was done. Then at the same time, factories had to pay people good wages, especially for the more skilled workers. And so when we suddenly saw this, through some of the legislation that Bill Clinton got through, made it easier for companies to move overseas. And then, of course, Europe was like, whoa, we can't let them do it. So they got things passed in their countries very similar. Because of this, and then through like the World Trade Organization, cutting back on what they call protectionism, which usually means protecting one nation's jobs against unfair or, policies in another country. These companies that were in America, that were in England, or might be in the south of Wales, okay, or in Iowa or Nebraska or California, these companies found it was cheaper to start moving overseas. It got them more money. It got their stockholders more money. Temporarily, for those people that have jobs in America or Europe, it's great because items cost less to buy. The long-term effect, though, is that eventually all those factories disappear in places like England and the United States. So what you do have is then those countries in which before it was just big companies from America and England going over there and setting up shop there. These companies are developing their own industry. These countries are developing their own industry. They're getting out there. They are going to have an industrial base. The Western industrial base is going to be, pretty much erased. And what are you going to do? I mean, you're a worker. You're going to lose, any ability to have a job. Now, there's where the interesting thing comes in. The media does not have people that hang out with workers. They don't go to a working class bowling alley or bar or something and talk to those people. These people that you see, these talking faces you see on corporate media, they make a fortune doing their job, looking a certain way, acting a certain way, and reading off their teleprompters. They are not going to be hanging with the guys or girls that are working class. It's not going to happen. So they're hanging out with the elite. And the elite's talking about, the stock's going up for my company. The shareholders are really happy. We downsized a little bit. Downsize. You know what that means? That's a fancy word for fired people. Okay? But it means if you can keep the production level where it was and the sales are still good, then that means your company's worth more. It doesn't matter if you're firing people left and right, and you don't care about those people who now can't find work. You care about the bottom line. It's a very psychopathic way of looking at things, actually. Basically the corporation as a psychopath. It is the job of the corporation is to make money. It is to preserve itself. It is to advance itself. That's psychopathy. Okay? Now, in a level playing field, there'd be nothing wrong with that because everyone would be fighting each other. Okay? If you got a situation where everyone's fighting and trying to make a good living and keeping their company going, that would be great. But we have a system in which in Europe, in the United States, it's set up to where it pretty much rewards companies for shutting down here and going elsewhere. And then when you have the big giant corporations, the big team players in the oligopoly, they can call up their senators and congressmen. You better believe they're going to be able to get lunch with them, or at least the lobbyists are going to be able to get lunch with them. And many of these senators and congressmen know that once they get out of the public, get out of the, serving in an administration or serving in the House or the Senate, if they play well with certain corporations, they can get jobs with those corporations, making a lot more money than they made in the House or Senate or the administration. And on top of that, they're still going to get their pension from all of these people, for their past years of service for the government. So they make out pretty good. But the thing is, again, they're not representing the middle class at all. The advantage the professionals in the middle class have is that often if you're a doctor or lawyer or something, you're not going to be hit with it quite as hard as if you're an assembly worker or you're a welder or you're a carpenter. Okay? Many bridges and stuff like this are being made now in Asia because it's cheaper to make them there and then float them over. Okay? So even construction jobs going bye-bye. But now I want to analyze one little thing here about the various campaigns. And this is this. Now, there's a variety of things if you look up American social classes. And believe me, the demographic breakdowns are much greater than what I'm going to deal with tonight. I mean, marketers can narrow you down to everything from race, ethnicity, education, sexual preference, what kind of music you listen to. They can use all kinds of programs on the internet to be able to find out where you go, even when you're not on their certain social media websites. If there's icons on a site that has nothing to do with it, that has like show your support here or like this or whatever, they can follow you and know that you've been there because they're trying to find out who you are so you can be marketed to individually. Okay? But now, again, there's there's dozens and dozens, but I'm going to make this economic and I'm going to discount to a large degree race and ethnicity and mostly deal with socioeconomic factors in this election that no one seems to want to touch. Because if the corporate media touched these issues, they wouldn't want to. Why? Because they don't represent the working class. They do not represent the vast majority of the middle class. Okay? They want the working class and the middle class watching their news shows and their programs. They definitely want that. Because then they can sell you things, and that's where they make their profit. But selling things is not the only thing that they're manipulating, trying to say, hey, buy this. This will make you smell better, look better, feel better, okay? They are trying to get you to accept a certain political agenda. And it doesn't matter which of the big networks or whatever you're listening to, it's usually a very similar agenda. Way more similar than there's going to be any differences, okay? Now, I'm going to deal with some of these things here. And first let's focus on the Trump campaign. Now, I look at social media and I see people who say they're representing Democrats, liberal Democrats. Hey, we got to support the workers. And up until about 6 months ago, I would see posts that would be like, yay, unions, and it's good that people are doing this, and, there's a strike over here somewhere. We need to support those men and women who are standing up for this. Then I saw something change. As Donald Trump started getting more support, I started seeing an elitism coming from these people. Oh, Donald Trump's support is coming from less educated people. First of all, that's not totally true, but the thing is it wrong that a man who's a welder, who, may not have a PhD in sociology and women's studies, might actually have just gone to school for, I don't know how long it takes to go to a trade school to learn welding, but it's certainly probably not, as long as getting a PhD. Is his support for the campaign less valuable than that person with the PhD in a field that they probably can't get a job in? Is a nurse, is her value going to be less than a college professor who teaches history, who had a lot more education? Okay, you see what I'm getting at here? We got class warfare, but it's not coming from the rich per se. It is being reflected by the people who are promoting, or to a large degree, the Democrat establishment, but also the Republican establishment. It's being said that the value of a candidate is based on how well their particular message appeals to the people who that political party feels are their brand. Now, if we look at brands, again, let's go back to media. During the Reagan administration, Reagan made a big point of trying to show a working class image. Now, he's from a working class background, okay? Reagan was from a working class background. His appeal, even though he wasn't working class anymore, was to those kinds of imagery. I can still remember the pictures of Reagan riding a horse, dressed up in jeans and with a beer, and at a barbecue that he just kind of showed up for during the first 1980s campaigns. Okay, those kinds of things. I don't think most Republicans nowadays would look very comfortable, out there trying to socialize with the common people. I don't think the Democrats are either. But again, I said I'll come back to those Democrats. Okay, I just don't see Hillary comfortable at a rodeo. Okay, I don't see Hillary comfortable at a car show. I don't see Hillary comfortable. I don't think I've ever seen Hillary comfortable anyway, even when she's with rich people. I don't know. Maybe that's just the way she comes across as her persona. She just doesn't seem comfortable. The thing is that the Republican establishment is scared. But they're the ones who put themselves in this mess. They, get Rubio, who was getting like just maybe 100 or 200 people to show up to a rally for him. Bush, who might get who got maybe a dozen people many times. I've seen the pictures, like 12 people show up to a town hall meeting to meet Jeb Bush. Donald Trump, who was able to get, he gets 35, 40, 50,000 people at his rallies. People can't even get in. Okay? You get some radical, people protesting. They blocked the road so, to try to keep his people that were following him from going to his rally. And some of those people, including some people who are handicapped, they got out of their cars and walked 3 miles to go to see him speak. That's dedication. And these people are often Democrats. These people are often people who are Republican, but the Republicans don't want to associate with except on election day. Okay? It's, please give us your votes. We really care about you. And then after the election, it's sort of like, whatever. They're kind of like, what? They're worse than a guy that goes out, on a one-night stand and tells, the girl he's with, hey, you're special. I really care for you. And then she never gets a phone call back, except maybe when he's back in town. Hey, Trisha, I haven't seen you for a while. Can we get together tonight? And does the same thing again, every 2 and 4 years. This is how the political parties are working. They're doing one-night stands on you People, come on. And then Trump all of a sudden comes along and says, you know what? No one's speaking for you. I can't get into Trump's mind. I don't know whether he's sincere. I don't know whether he's telling the truth. Okay? I have no clue. However, I do know that he speaks the language and people are perceiving and discerning that what he says is true. And everyone is trying to demonize him for this because he threatens. He's just like he's bringing the players down on the field to win the game. And so therefore, you've got the big wigs. You've got people in, even the Pope gave his opinion as if he, deserves to have an opinion on American politics. You had, you've had, on the immigration thing. You've had the media, even some media that you thought was conservative. Oh, he's horrible. He's horrible. Oh, Donald Trump, he does this. He's a racist. He's a bigot. He's a sexist. He's this and this and this. And then you actually will challenge them and say, okay, where is he? And they'll say, well, there's this one here. Let's listen to this blip. And they say, yeah, can we hear the rest of what he had to say? And when he's able to clarify it without having to, cut and paste, and try to, Photoshop him saying something he didn't really say, then you see that what he says is usually pretty reasonable. Do you think he would, do you have so little faith in the American public that he could be speaking for a rally of 30,000 people and say the things the media claims he says, and those 30,000 people, you think, are going to be applauding for that? Are you saying, mainstream media, are you saying that those people coming there represent the values that you claim Donald Trump represents? Then you have a very low opinion of the average American. Okay? You have a very low opinion of them. Because I think that if he got up there and was saying the things that the media claims he is saying, that people would be putting down their signs, and maybe not all of them, but a whole bunch of them be walking out. You could walk up and start interviewing them. Wouldn't that be great? Mainstream media? That you could go up there and start interviewing these people walking out of his rally halfway through. Hey, why are you walking out? Oh, I just found out he really is a bigot. Oh, I really found out he does hate other people from other races. Oh, I just found out. But you know what? You don't find that, do you? In fact, actually what you find is people, coming out at the end of it saying, I wasn't going to vote for him at first, but now I am. Because the thing is, the truth is not being told. Now, back to the class warfare thing. There are various classes in America. You've got the very rich. These are people, I'm not going to list money, but you get the point. These are the people who, live in the very best areas, have a lot of money. Their idea of spending some time with the family is a plane flight to the Bahamas. Okay? Donald Trump's one of them. Okay? He is one of them. But still, okay. But the others are too. Anyway, those are the people that usually have gone to the best schools. They didn't go to the state universities. They went to the private Ivy League, often in British schools and so forth, and, got their training and socialization in those fields. And of course, they meet each other's, the kids of the rich meet other kids of the rich, intermarry, and wind up, just like looking at a corporate spreadsheet for, all the big giant companies in the world today. This person sits here, all these family lines are interbreeding with each other. Then you've got the, kind of what you would call the, I don't think it's a very good term for it, but maybe the upper middle class. People that have, usually postgraduate studies. These could be everywhere from, lawyers, educators, doctors, professors, various other professionals. And the interesting thing about these people is even though they may not have the same money as the upper class, they do have a connection to them and they feel equal to the upper class. In fact, many times superior. These are the people that go to the art galleries and to the plays and to all these other things that usually, these are things that might cost some money to go see or do, but at the same time, they're not something that really appeals to a large, audience. They appeal to a very select group. But again, it's kind of elitist, but not everyone who is in these groups is an elitist. Okay? They are not necessarily, of the same basic mindset. Now, as I was saying, the next group I would say are the more of a lower middle class people. Now, these are people that might be like some of the ones I just described. These are small shop owners. These could be managers, not at the very top, not CEOs, but they could be at the manager class. These could be the welders I was speaking about. These could even, these could be the policemen, firemen. A lot of people in the public sector fall into this. Now, these people can go from high school to college education. The kinds of things they might go in for, as opposed to the upper class who are going to be going to usually more elitist stuff, even though they're not part of the elite. These people go to sporting events. These people are the kind of people that go to a NASCAR thing or to a monster truck rally or something like that. These are people you usually, during the Reagan years, they were called Reagan Democrats because they often are registered Democrat. They're often union members, but on a variety of issues, they will vote Republican. Okay, and this is a huge area where Trump is getting support. So they try to make it sound like these are just uneducated people living somewhere, I don't know, in a cardboard shack someplace with no teeth coming out to vote for Trump. Not true. Not true. These are the people that you see going to work every day, paying their taxes, going to school, their kids going to school, that sort of thing. These people have been devastated by globalization. These are the people who feel, whether rightfully or wrongfully, that increased immigration from a variety of countries threatens not just their jobs, but means more taxes to have to pay. So they tend not to be very supportive of an open borders policy, whereas you'll find that at the elite. For a variety of reasons. Some of them feel like, oh, well, this makes economic sense. But often their jobs are not threatened by globalization. Not yet, at least. But their jobs are not threatened by companies shutting down and going to Vietnam or something like that. These people, they are scared. Now, then you've got the working class. But I would actually say, instead, the working class blends into the lower middle class. So I would say you have the working class who are more of the working poor. Now, these are the people that do the 9-to-5 jobs, but they don't have enough money to pay their bills. These are the ones where I've been seeing people that are supporting the Democratic Party, but they're saying, oh, well, this county here, is not, it votes Republican, but they get more food stamps than almost any part of the country. Well, the thing is, what they're talking about is people that, yes, they have jobs that they barely make it. They may have jobs that they didn't need educations on. By the way, some of you guys getting the sociology degrees, you may be doing these kinds of jobs, okay? So you should feel a little bit of connection to those people in the working poor, because you're probably not going to get jobs up there with the elite, okay? Unless you get into some good government position, you're probably going to be working at these jobs. So just keep that in mind. That's just a little secret between you and me, okay? Now, the thing is that the high school, the schools these kids go to, this is where the military recruits a lot. Okay? They recruit at these kinds of schools. These are the these are the kind of kids who, if they do show promise, they can't afford to go to college. All right? Now they also recruit working class and lower middle class schools, but more the areas where they really, the military really likes to have people who've stayed out of trouble. They've still gotten good grades, but they still need an education and they can't afford it. and they're not dirt poor, so therefore, what do? I mean, sure. I mean, if you're working class or even lower middle class and you've got 4 or 5 kids, you might be able to qualify for grants. But if you got one kid, then that kid's got to probably still have to find some way to pay for college without any kind of help from the government. Now, then underneath them, you've got what a lot of people, and I hate this phrase, people call them like poor white trash or something like this, or ghetto trash, whatever. These horrible phrases. But I see these phrases aimed at people who might be voting for Trump, and the Democrats are calling them names, which I think is really rude. Now, I'm not saying the party itself is doing this, but the operatives that I see in social media, the ones making fun, of the Trump voters. But these people who belong to the lowest of the lower classes, the ones who are often working part-time or on welfare or just can barely make it, and maybe they've been kicked out of a house or an apartment 2, 3, 4, 5 times while growing up. I don't mean moving voluntarily. I mean kicked out. This group here usually doesn't even vote, okay, whether for Democrats or Republicans. But there are a few of them actually coming out for Trump. Now, this is what's scaring the Republican elite. This is what, they're not telling you this, but they're scared that Trump will appeal to what they call, in a negative, derogatory way, populist rhetoric, populist appeal. Well, what is it saying? It means it's popular amongst the people. That maybe people are getting a message that is for their benefit and not for the people at the very top. And that scares them because all of a sudden they're worried that this could change the direction of the Republican Party. The Republican Party, since about the mid-1990s, has been very comfortable with just maybe holding on to the House or the Senate or the House and the Senate, and not really being devastated when they don't get the presidency. Because, come on, face it, what's the difference between if you're talking about war, if you're talking about international economics and those kinds of things and domestic policies, is there really a difference between Obama and Bush? Now, there is a difference in some things. Might have issues of gun control, stuff like that. But on other issues, no difference. And the people that rule the parties are comfortable with that. Now I'm going to get into the Democrats. They're comfortable with it too. The Democrats, it's been stacked against Bernie Sanders. Okay, I'm not a Bernie Sanders fan. I like the guy and I respect the guy for standing up for what he believes in. Okay, I do that. I really do. I don't think his policies are that good, although he does make a lot of sense when he does talk about the corporate media. Okay, now Trump, he centers on Fox News, Fox News, and makes them an example for everyone to look at. Sanders just says things about the corporate media, about how unfair they are, without really, I don't know, maybe he's named names, I don't know, but the things I've heard from him, he talks about the corporate media in general. Sanders also seems to care a little bit more about having fair trade policies that don't just devastate the working and middle class of the United States. And he also says, hey, if we weren't involved in so many wars right now, maybe we could afford to build our infrastructure up. Okay? I like those kinds of policies. The direction of how to get there, not so much liking it. Okay? He may have it's like saying, I want to go fishing and I want to catch fish. Now, I can go out there and throw my hook in and wait for a fish to bite. Or I can maybe, throw some dynamite in the water and blow up a chunk of the river and then just pick up fish at the top. Now, thing is, to me, fishing, you can get to a direction one way or another, but I'd rather the less intrusive way. I don't want the government just going in there and blowing the river up, and then, what happens afterwards after you've picked up all the fish from the river. There's no fish left. Whereas, so I don't like the socialist idea there. And I would not vote for Sanders. Although if I had a choice between voting for Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, oh my gosh, I'd put a Bernie Sanders sticker on my car and be totally supporting because, Hillary Clinton scares me. Okay, I'll just say that. She scares me. Look up Hillary Clinton / Gaddafi. Okay, that's just that one little segment where she's, joking around about, killing Gaddafi. That's enough to go, red light. And also look up her video where she's talking about her trip to Bosnia. Okay, just watch that. Some of these videos I have a feeling will be taken down. Some way they're going to find some copyright thing somewhere to be able to take these videos down. But while you still have a chance, look those up. Hillary, though, is indistinguishable from the leadership of the Republican Party. I don't think there's that big a difference. I think they get along really well. And so class-wise, for people to think that the Democratic Party represents them, go see if they'll let you in on one of those, dinners, fundraising dinners where it's, how much? Hundreds of thousands of dollars to get in? Now they'll say, but this is a fundraising dinner. It's special. Yeah. It also means access. You don't have a Hillary hot dog, fundraiser where everyone can go in and just talk. All right. These kinds of mass rallies psychologically can be set up to where only, you try to make sure you don't get those kinds of questions about Benghazi and internet servers and those kinds of things. You don't want those kinds of questions. And there are ways that both Republicans and Democrats have of crowd maintenance where you can, it's an art that's been learned over the years where you can tell, okay, this person's going to be trouble when they ask a question. All right. So, but the thing is that the psychology and everything, it's not in the favor of some sort of Athenian democracy model. Of course, that wasn't very democratic either. The Republicans and the Democrats, they use the same strategies. They use the same rhetoric ultimately. And this is why Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are interrupting this whole thing because they don't fit the mold. Okay? This is like I'm going to use a medical analogy. Your body, you get certain numbers of, I'm not saying Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are a virus, okay? I'm not saying that. But let's say, use this analogy. You got the body here, and let's pretend that's the body politic. And then, they can recognize what's the friendly virus, or at least non-pathogenic viruses and so forth. But then you get a Bernie Sanders or a Donald Trump come in, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, stop. And then, to a large degree, the antibodies aren't working. Okay? And this is what they see someone like Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump as infections that need to be cured. And they've done everything possible. I'm sure, I wouldn't be surprised if Republicans don't adopt the whole superdelegate thing after this. If Trump loses. I will note this though, many of the Republicans, if Trump wins the national election and becomes the president of the United States, they will suddenly be, coming to his door with flowers like, oh, Donald, let's all work together now. Okay? But let's just say that they don't want this. They want someone they can control. They want someone who, let them say and do things that are a little bit away from the norm, but only within a certain polite level of disagreement. Trump and Bernie Sanders are not in the polite level. And this is one of the reasons why they're getting appeal from people that normally feel left out. Young men, in their under 30, they're, that usually the elite just look at as, pretty good, recruits for the military. Normally they don't get involved in politics that much, but a lot of them have gotten involved in Sanders' campaign. The working class, the middle class, the people who normally are not really that important on the radar for the Republicans except for votes, now they're getting involved and they're liking it. It's that internet. Oh, it's getting out there and it's getting people mobilized. They can connect to one another. And this is really, really frightening for the elite. Okay? So ultimately, you've got to look at this as a class warfare thing, not in the traditional Marxian sense, but it's a class warfare from the elite trying to keep control of the masses, keep them quiet, keep them docile, keep them focused on reality shows and sports, beer, pornography, you name it. They want them involved, keep their attention away from politics. But unfortunately, things have gotten hard because those people are seeing that there is a big world out there and they're not part of making decisions of what's going to happen for themselves and their children. So that's why they're getting out there and taking notice. So the next time you hear some elitist from either the Democrat or the Republican Party talking about the divisive message, the misplaced idealism of these alternative candidates, just remember what that's a code word for, okay? That's a code word for they don't want to play by the rules that have been set up by the national parties. And therefore, they are disrupting what has become a very profitable and controllable situation. Now you've got people that are not controllable. And that is what has the establishment scared. They might stick around and start running for office themselves. They might decide that it's time to get elected into party chairships and then start the process of gaining control of parties. You may have a situation where in 4 or 8 years, the Democratic Party is going to look like it's something formed by Bernie Sanders, whereas the Republican Party could be something that looks like it's formed by Donald Trump. And this mythical middle, this mythical moderate situation, the oligarchy, okay, that might not be in as good a shape. Who knows? Maybe things will change. But right now, there is a class difference between the people who are in charge of the parties and the people who are the rank and file, who are only supposed to get involved on election day or, when it comes to pictures at rallies to support the various candidates and to get the ratings up for the news media. Anyway, that's all I'm going to deal with in this segment on that topic. I'd like to continue with this whole Trump thing, but this is what I would like to point out here for everyone. The whole thing that went on with the election in Arizona and Utah, more specifically Utah, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, one of the things that came out was this whole idea that this PAC, it showed pictures of Trump's wife when she was a model. And then it said, essentially, do you want this person as your first lady? Or, something to that effect. And I know that this was probably because this is a religiously conservative state and that this was meant to get people to think that Trump and his wife are in some way like these big city, worldly type people. And I think that's really, really, really hitting below the belt. Okay? I really do. I think first of all, I don't care, that now it's turned into this big fight between Trump and Cruz, involving, your wife, my wife, whatever. Here's what would solve the whole thing. Okay? Because Trump got angry that this kind of stuff was being done, and rightfully so. What guy out there, unless he's some sort of wimpy little metrosexual from Northern Europe, not all Northern European men are wimpy metrosexuals, but anyway, there's plenty of them in New York and Los Angeles and so forth. But anyway, the thing is, what guy would just sit back and let something like that slide? I certainly wouldn't do it. Now, maybe going on the attack against the other candidate's wife was, it's understandable, but probably is not the best thing. So here's my suggestion, okay? Mr. Cruz, all right? I mean, if anyone's out there that has any connection to Mr. Cruz, just disavow the group, okay? Just say that you have nothing to do with them, and that it was reprehensible that these kinds of pictures were presented in a political context. It's easy. Just do that. And then I think it would solve the whole thing. And then everyone could get a little bit more mature. And you know what? Right now, I do not know. I mean, I've got people in social media groups I'm in. I've got people that are really for Trump. And I've got people that are really for Cruz. And then there's a lot of people that are kind of like, well, I'm going to vote for Trump, but I really like Cruz too. And vice versa. Well, I'm going to vote for Cruz because I think he's the best guy, but I like Trump. So here's what I am really scared of. You know what that is? That is the slimy people that are behind the scenes that are not part of Ted Cruz or Donald Trump's campaign. But they're behind the scenes trying to fan the flames of discord between Trump and Cruz so that it'll become a big mess at the Republican National Convention this summer. It'll turn brokered. And I'll warn you right now, okay? I'll warn you right now. These people that are, many of them, maybe not all of them, but the ones I've read about that are really trying to do this, they don't want Cruz. They don't like Cruz. They don't like Trump either. They don't want Trump. What they want is a brokered convention so they can slip in under the table this compromise candidate. And they'll say, oh, this candidate's moderate. This candidate can unite the party. All right? And I think you know the usual list of suspect names that will be brought forth as being these great uniters. And they're all going to be establishment Republicans. They're all going to be the kind of people that basically could probably run a ticket with Hillary Clinton. Be the vice president. Maybe it could be a Hillary / whoever the Republicans want out there. And that is essentially what's going on right now. Okay? This fight is being promoted. You don't think that there's people behind this. I'm not going to list names of groups or names of individuals, financiers or so forth, but I'll tell you right now, if it goes brokered, you might as well just throw your Cruz 2016 buttons and, well, I might save those for collection, but posters and stuff in the garbage. And you might as well throw your Trump 2016 buttons and posters and so forth in the garbage as well, because they're not going to be applicable to this election. So keep that in mind. Please don't think that if this goes brokered that maybe Cruz will win, because I don't think they want Cruz. Take a look at what the establishment Republicans, it doesn't take much to take a look, Take a look at what the establishment Republicans, fellow senators, and so forth have said about Cruz up until recently. You don't think they've suddenly become Ted Cruz fans overnight, okay? They haven't. They absolutely haven't. And you got to remember that when this election first started, people thought Donald Trump was a joke, and they thought Cruz was the man to beat. And that's where they put their pressure to knock down Cruz. And then all of a sudden Trump comes along and derails the whole plan. So essentially, if you're a Cruz person and you're ripping on Trump all the time, knock it off, please. If you're a Trump person and you're ripping on Cruz all the time, again, knock it off. Okay? This would be akin to, I don't know, when in the Pacific Theater in World War II, if the British and the American soldiers had started shooting at each other instead of shooting at the Japanese. All right? This is what it is. You're going to have to think about this. You don't want to damage the other candidate too bad. Because, something could happen and Cruz could wind up in some way getting the nomination fair and square. Lots of things could happen. Trump probably will get the nomination, but things could happen there. And so you better hope that one of them gets the nomination. Okay? I mean, it's right now, what is it, a three-man race? It's got that guy from Ohio, Kasich. And I'm sorry, the way he's like, yeah, I won. And he won his own state. That's more, for him to think he can win is more pathetic than Plankton in SpongeBob, who's always trying to take over, and everything. Actually, I think Plankton has a little bit more charisma than Kasich. But the thing is, it probably wouldn't even be Kasich in a brokered convention. So, and I don't think it's going to be Rubio or any of those, not Rubio. I'm not going to say not any of the others that wound up with 0% of the vote. But come on, bury the hatchet. Start putting attention on Hillary Clinton. Okay, I think that's the best thing to do. It's ridiculous to be spending, for the Republicans to be beating each other up. Let the Democrats do that. Let Bernie and Hillary fight it out. All right? But take a look at the way the media presents this. People have put me on some Bernie social media sites. The Bernie Sanders people really do not like Hillary. But the media is not telling you that, are they? The media is making this sound like, okay, this is cute. Bernie gets some votes. And then every one of those votes are going to go for Hillary in the general election. Not going to happen. But if the Republicans don't start focusing more on Hillary, then she will be the president of the United States in November of 2016. So, again, Republicans, consider what's going to happen if you get a brokered convention and then act accordingly. Anyway, that's all the time we have now. So thank you for tuning in and hope you'll be back next week for another episode of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions.
You are listening to UCY.TV. Why don't you stick around for more awesome radio?